So it looks like we have a quorum present. So we call the meeting to order. First item of business is prayer and pledge of allegiance. And Mr. Dillard, could you do that for us, please, sir?
Yes. You want to do allegiance first or pray?
We probably better pray first.
Okay. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. We ask you to help us to always remember that we're here to serve and we're not here to be served. We ask you to guide us, direct us in everything that we do and say, and we'll be careful to give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In your name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can have the roll call first.
Sordahl,
Present.
Williams, Durr,
Present.
Moore,
Here.
Berger,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Dillard.
Here. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from the June 12th, 2021 special meeting.
I move adoption of the minutes of the June 12th, 2021 special meeting.
I second.
We have a motion and second to approve the minutes as presented of the June 12th, 2021 special meeting. Is there any questions or discussion?
It says June 14th and June 12th, so I'm not sure.
It's
Okay.
14.
I'll amend my motion.
And you amend your second?
I'm in my second,
Okay,
yes.
so we have a motion and second to approve the meetings, correcting it to show it's a meeting of, was it June 12th or was it June
It's the
14th?
14th.
June 14th. June 14th meeting.
Today's the 12th. I got a little confused.
Do we have any other questions or discussion? If you'd have the roll call, please.
Williams? No. Durr?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dillard?
Yes.
Sordahl.
Yes. Presentation update for Pryor Main Street.
Guys, I'm back again. This is nothing that's a call to action. It's just basically an update of something we've been having in the works this long and that you guys have been a part of. So this is just updating you. So we have this contract with the Planning Design Group out of Tulsa. They're the ones that's going to be doing the downtown streetscape plan that you guys voted to be able to supply us. And so we meet a few times each month just getting information back and forth to each other on specific areas, gathering places that are possibilities. These could be projects from downtown businesses that will affect the design, and then things that we want/don't want. And that includes input from the community. We hosted basically a roundtable discussion that we invited building owners, business owners, and people downtown to basically come and speak with PDG, and it was just kind of an open forum of a this or that. Do you like this design versus that design? What do you think of when you think of downtown? What events do we have that would affect this design? Businesses that have projects that would affect the design, and just different things like that. So kind of just nailing down what would be functional for us. They're obviously not from here, so we wanted that input from people that are from here, that do business here, that live here, that shop here. So we held that, and then in the handout, I just kind of handed you guys some really informal notes of the ODOT questionnaire. I know that was one thing that was an issue. We had several questions that how would this plan, intertwine with ODOT and what would work, what wouldn't, and so you can feel free to read through those basically. And then let me see where mine are. Basically, a lot of what we already know. They don't want us to touch things like the roadways and the parking spaces, and that the city is responsible for the parking and things like that. But there were things that were hopeful in it. So they're going to allow greenery and things that we didn't think that we would be able to use before. So that includes trees. They're going to allow to do the bump outs, and that's something that our OU IQC presentation, they thought was a good idea for safety, but then also visibility and just aesthetically. So they're going to allow us to do bump outs with obvious So it says here on the fourth red dot, 2 to 4 feet between driving lane and where the bump out / curbs begin. So there's different things like that that they're gonna give us, but also with their own rules that come with it, and you can read along there. They touched on in the meeting things with parking, with streetlights. I know that was one thing that Jared had a question about, if we could include new streetlights, or the traffic lights, and then monuments. This is one of the disheartening things, but we're creative and we're gonna roll around it in Pryor. So one of the things that they don't want is actual monument signage on Highway 69 or Highway 20 that says, downtown district or, this way or anything like that, but would not be opposed, say if the chamber building would allow us to put a sign on their building that says right around this corner or the opposite side or things like that. So they wouldn't be opposed to that. They just basically don't want it to be on their sidewalk right there at the corner. Moving down a little bit, let me see. So they want to check on maintenance, and one thing that we are working back and forth with is they talked about being able to put in an underground irrigation system that would make it much easier for maintenance. They said how this has worked in other cities is that they would put an underground irrigation, and then the street department or parks department would come in and basically maintain them. And so that's something that they said as far as maintenance that we could work out, and that's something that we would obviously discuss more with the city and you guys about the way that we want to do that. Seating, they said that they would allow anything that's basically city provided. So like city provided or Main Street provided, organization provided benches and trash cans are fine. They just don't necessarily want, say for a business to want to put out tables for the restaurant. They want to stay away from things like that. But things that we could do, benches, they're totally okay with. They're okay with seating in that way. They just don't want anything that, say a business closes and they just like up and take, that sort of thing. On the back page of that, which this is something we're obviously like not super close to, but it's something to start thinking about. Actually, let me go back a little bit. We have talked about the Jefferson Highway. One thing that we found out, I forget what was released, but it was released from the state where basically they would give grants for Jefferson Highway. After looking into that, that's more so about just signage and like banners. It's not really anything that would be a large chunk of money to be able to go towards this. It's basically they would provide grants for banners for poles and signs that say, Jefferson Highway's this way, and maybe some historical things. It's not anything that's going to be super affecting any of this. So next is a funding option. I know that's one thing that we have kind of talked about. They did say that there was a grant that we're going to look into, and it's basically a 20% match, and you can do it for up to 2 years. We would be considered a larger city, so in total in 2 years, if we were to receive the grant, it's just TAP funding. It would be $1.2 million, but we would have to come up with $240,000 of that on our own. So that's something to just think about, like towards the end of this. But an 80-20 grant sounds pretty good to me. So, or 80-20 funding sounds pretty good to me. So there's other things that that there's discussions with ODOT, but I knew there were questions, and that's what we have so far as that. One sheet, which I think I left mine right there. It's kind of a bird's eye view of not official plans. There were things. After they sent that to me, we kind of went back and forth and said, actually, that's not going to be that big, such as the First Priority Bank, the little section of the, parking, and then the little fountain thing that you guys have planned. Told them that the sizing on that's not correct. There were some other things that we had to adjust, but just know we wanted to give you guys a slight update of what they're working on and that they are working on it, but there's going to be adjustments. So don't think that that's the final by any means at all. So the next thing, I think that you guys, let me see. No, you guys don't have it. I just printed off one, but I'll show you. So one area that they, wherever I put it, one area that they kind of sent us a closer look on. This is obviously not a final. This is something that they want to have our input on, but that's what's exciting about these stages is that we can have input, and like whatever you guys have as far as feedback, I can go back to them. But this, if you guys want to pass it down, obviously we're not going to name it this. That's something that's going to kind of be changed. Also, because of ODOT not allowing us to have those monuments on the highway, we would have to put, basically, the gateway would have to be on a side street, and they did that for North and South Adair, since that's kind of like the hub of where it is. But that's just the view of South Adair right there. Things like making our crosswalks a brickway, we decided to do that rather than painting a design, because maintenance long-term would be better that way. And there's different things that we're deciding on there. And so obviously, these are nowhere near finals, but these, are just kind of showing that we're going somewhere, and they're working on something. And then we
So
also.
this would be the Van Buskirk
Yeah.
district.
You know what?
Is
Yeah.
that what this is?
I think, yeah, let's
Oh, I'm
vote for
sorry,
it.
this says downtown.
Yeah, let's vote for it here. Let's do that. No, I'm just kidding. So they're working on that, and then we also don't have an exact date set, but in August, we're planning on basically presenting what they do have. You could still tweak, we could still tweak things between now and then, but if you have feedback, that would be awesome to get before then. That way, when they do come present, publicly, it's something that's very, very close to what we would like. So that is all I have. I meet to them, we do Zoom meetings about once a week. And so anything you guys have, even if it's not now, you can email me, anything like that. But do you have any questions so far?
I have a real quick question, so I
Yeah.
understand what you said,
Mhm.
because I probably wasn't listening when you first started.
That's okay.
The parking along Graham, where it says not any issues with the but
Mhm.
they're saying that, but they don't want the parking on Graham Street changed, it's still, they still insist on the parallel?
Yeah, so we talked about changing all the parallel to slanted, and after
Mhm.
going back to them and asking, they don't want that touched. So that's one thing that they don't want to mess
Well,
with.
there was always a lot of things they didn't want to do, but I see some improvements here.
Some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, greenery things, like
Yeah.
trees and things like that. Bump outs, that was the biggest thing
Yeah,
for
it's
me.
huge.
Yeah, is that they're gonna allow us to do that. And then it also shows just the public, we're not just focusing on Adair or Van or whatever side street. We're doing what we can with what we have and what we're allowed to do, so.
So for the Jefferson Highway, I know that you had said that they don't want us to put monumental signs, but would the Jefferson Highway be something separate that we are allowed since they're providing the funding for those types of signs?
I don't even know that they would want us to do that. But
Interesting.
what the examples they gave were light pole banners. That's really like all it was. But we could do, or like plaques and things like that.
Yeah.
We could talk to them considering it's with them, what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like Jefferson Highway is with them, and see if that's something that they would do. But I don't know that for sure yet to say yes or no. But
Yeah.
for sure, it's like banners and things like that. And,
Okay.
but if we could do that, we could work our magic and like find a way to highlight our downtown with the signage that they would allow. So.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I do know the TAP grant is opened, like they do population. Do we know when ours would open
This fall.
this fall?
So if we
Awesome.
could, so the timing, if we could get this all done. say
Yeah.
August, it's approved, this is what we want, then it's reopened with full funding back this fall for us. Because at this point, there's not much left, but it would be full funding when it comes our time around to be able to apply for this. So
Amazing.
it's just kind of, the timing right now is set to work out perfectly, so if we
Mhm.
can just hopefully.
So Jenny, is that in October then?
October or November.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to find out, but,
Okay.
but either way, if we could get this nailed down in August, vote and things by September, and then rock and roll, like I think that maybe by next year, we could be looking pretty good as far as getting this started.
Also, a comment, the Chamber Building is a city-owned building. And so putting some kind of monument sign there or significant sign there regarding, if that's allowable, then to do the engineering and to go through those processes, maybe have PDG go through those processes and present a sign component perhaps we might want to attach to the Chamber Building.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I do have a question, and I don't know if it'd be appropriate to ask you guys or the city, but so as far as maintenance, just because that is very important, that's super important, if we do get this irrigation system, would there be any extra funding per year to be able to get someone to be able to provide maintenance throughout the year for our downtown? They said it's not gonna be anything that's like flowers or anything that's high maintenance. It would be more so things that just might need trimmed here and there, and maybe like a treatment here and there, especially if we have that irrigation system. So, I don't know, something to think about, but.
So, Mr. Crisp, there would be some kind of a meter that would measure that water, and so that meter would be attached to some kind of an account. Would that be a city account?
Would it be a city account or a downtown account, or a Main Street account, whoever wants to pay the bill?
Right, right.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. If you guys have any other.
You know, I know Bixby, PDG Group did a design for downtown Bixby. And I know Mr. Dillard said there's nothing in downtown Bixby. But since they did that, 3 new restaurants I've heard are wanting to move down there. And I just heard this over the weekend that one of the radio stations is gonna do downtown concerts in Bixby starting this in the next little bit, so it revitalizes. I mean, it just really brought a lot of life downtown, so.
That's in that downtown gathering space.
Yeah, and, you know, so, and what's, we don't realize what we have, because we see it every day, but the PDG group, the IQC group is like, your downtown is amazing. And we're looking around like, looks like a ghost town, but they say there's more bones here, there's more people in our downtown than Bixby had in theirs and other places, so.
And one thing that obviously you guys all know, but can help me as far as just publicity of projects like this is towns that we love and hear about, you know, Claremore, Broken Arrow, that people say, why can't ours be like that? Those took several years, if almost multiple decades to get there. And so an example, Claremore from this point on took 12 years to get from this point to where they are now. And Broken Arrow, 8 years. And these were all examples PDG gave. So it takes time, but like we're starting, you know, and so it's just education, I think, for the public too.
That's super exciting. I just have one quick comment too.
Yeah.
I recently got to visit Boise, Idaho, and I went to their downtown. It was so beautiful. But they have this alley that they call Freak Alley, and it's where, I know it's an odd name,
Yeah.
we could come up with something different, but they're, basically though, twice a year they invite local artists, and they have to, it's like a competition type thing.
Yeah.
But once a year they'll repaint over the entire alley and have the painters paint it. So I don't know if that could be something mentioned in this. I know this looks like it's focusing on these 2 main streets, but I don't know if it could be a blurb in the plan or something, but maybe that could be an idea to get some more art downtown, and
Yeah.
I thought it would be a great idea.
Yeah, they, so one thing, a project Main Street's doing is, we're in the process, we don't have anything signed yet, but we are getting a company out of Tulsa that's gonna come and do a giant mural downtown, like a professionally done one, and they actually host, what were they called? Like Art Days or something, I can't remember what it was, but they do them in Tulsa and they bring people in everywhere, and they said that Pryor might be their second location to be able to do this. And so, yeah, and so like we're nailing all that down. And people from all over the state come, and it's like an artistic weekend, and there's food trucks, and it's just like a really insane thing to watch these people do this, so,
Awesome.
yeah.
This is great work, Jenny. Thank you for everything you do.
Guys.
Is there any progress, or maybe it's been done and I'm not aware, progress too as far as the park over here, or has that ever been part of the city, or is that still privately owned?
It's still privately owned land. Interesting you should ask, because we had a Mason County Trails Alliance meeting on Friday. Was that right, Ariana?
Last week sometime, I
Thursday?
can't remember if it was Friday, last week.
Thursday, and so we did have discussion about that and how that's maybe gonna proceed on, so.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just wondering if that needs to be a discussion that needs to be part of this trust, part of Main Street. It gets back to the theory of we're all in this together, because you talk about having a place to have concerts downtown, there's a location. You talk about a place having art fairs, that's a location. And it's right there along this, and if you do something like this and you had a location like that. So, again,
Yeah.
it falls under the theory of, it'd be nice for this trust to be involved in that, and Main Street to be involved in those discussions, and the city council to be involved in those discussions, and meeting with those private owners to see what can be done to help to move that along.
Well, the PDG group did the design for that, right? Yeah, so the
Yeah.
design is there.
right.
It's with this group.
Yeah, the PDG did the design work and the city funded that design work.
So, I mean, anything we can help to move that along, because that seems like it's completely compatible with what's going on here.
And so on a potential pocket park where the burned down boomerang was, that wanted to be a pocket park, they included that in there. But a part of their design for that is gonna be that they're gonna leave the back space open and do a direct like walkway to that green space, that
Amazing.
area. Yeah, so
How
people can go
exciting.
through there. Yeah, so, I don't know, I agree, I think it's great to work together like that.
Yeah, and I just want to make a comment on the green space. So basically where we're at right now is that we're trying to build momentum on that space by having regular events. So far we've been able to have a health fair there. We tried, the Trails Alliance and Hope tried to get different entities to kind of take on to lead that effort in planning events. But there are some obstacles in the way as far as when we had that event, there's no electricity out there. And no water, no bathrooms, so just things like that are obstacles. And when we chatted about it at the Trails Alliance last week, we talked about how a lot of that stuff couldn't happen until it is owned by the city. So I don't know how we could, as a group, work to meet some of those obstacles, meet those needs. But I think I would love that we're all interested in meeting with those private owners. I definitely think we should continue having those conversations to see how we can partner.
Okay. Like I said, email me if you have any questions or call me or anything like that, and we can get those to PDG if you guys have any suggestions or things that you think should be included. So, thanks.
Thank you, Jenny.
Brings us to recap of the June, I guess we've decided was 14th. It's the June 14th meeting and charting a path forward.
Do you want me to chat about it?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so we brought in the Broken Arrow, a couple people from their economic development team, and it seemed like the consensus, and I'll let everyone else speak too, but what I got out of that meeting was I felt like there was a consensus that we needed to all pull in the same direction. That what was so exciting is that the Broken Arrow team, they actually said that they were intimidated by us because we do have all of the pieces working for us. We just need to organize them together and make sure that we're charting that same path. So there was conversation about us kind of being almost like the glue to these bigger partnerships. And Tammy McEwen, who is with Grand Gateway, made a great point that a lot of these big players already have plans that they're working toward. And so, and Pryor obviously has the comprehensive plan. And so maybe in charting a path forward, we were thinking that maybe consolidating those plans or possibly just looking at what Pryor's comprehensive plan is and then kind of compare and contrast with the other group's plans, so that way we can have a common theme moving forward. I did, peruse through the comprehensive plan before this meeting, and in each section, there are priorities and goals for each section. And so there's like community systems, healthy neighborhoods, and different things like that. And I had wondered, because I think with us, we need specific goals to meet. So like, I'm talking like with those, the SMART acronyms, specific, attainable, measurable, timely, all of those things. I think if we could come up with we already have the plan, but we just kind of take out of those plans what our priorities need to be and then review those monthly, like what have we done towards this goal and what could we do differently. So that's kind of what I got out of the meeting, and thinking about where we could start going forward is to take the plans that are already developed and really just prioritize those and see what the low-hanging fruits are for this group that we could accomplish together. So that's that I took out of the meeting, if anybody wants to add to that.
I took out of the meeting, are we Pryor or are we Pryor Creek?
That's true.
I think there was probably some misconception about the meeting. I think it's also unfortunate that we have certain entities that weren't present. And where we go from here, I'm not sure. I think the whole purpose, we understand we don't have Broken Arrow's millions of dollars. There was no intent to say we're Broken Arrow and we're gonna start acting like Broken Arrow. The whole intent of Broken Arrow was coming to explain and to get a whole group of people together was nothing's gonna change until you do get together a group and you reach a consensus of what needs to happen. Do we have the ability to do that in Pryor? I don't know. It's like I said before, I'm still not sure what the function of this trust is. We've now been meeting for 18 months. We
enjoy getting together.
We do. You can call me for lunch anytime you want to. We've talked about the property north of town and then maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Seems like that's going on the wayside. And then we hear talk about the hospital building out there, which nothing has come before this trust, rightfully, wrongfully, I don't know whether it should or shouldn't. But we heard nothing about that, but apparently there's some plans and discussion about that, but maybe you all know about it, I don't. Rilana, I'm encouraged by what you presented today. That's a better plan we've seen for downtown, and we've seen, as we've talked when you first came, for decades since we've been here. I'm still not just sure where we go, because the purpose of that meeting was not, we're not Broken Arrow, we know that. But it was to show an example of what happens when you have communication, you have transparency, and you have openness between all of these groups. And you're right, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't happen in a year and a half, obviously. And I'm rambling, but I'm not even sure what the function, and at one time when we first started this, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, we can come here and we can pick some project and we can do it and we can show how to do it. After talking to Broken Arrow, I realized I don't have the expertise to do that. And so I see perhaps our function at this point in time, and I may be the only one who sees this, is to continue to bring these groups together, to have the discussions to see if we can reach a consensus. Is there stuff in the comprehensive plan that we can actually do? Do we need to go to a city manager? Or do we need to at least have an administrator that's hired that has the I don't know that anybody in this room has the expertise to do comprehensive economic development. I'll freely admit I don't. But if we get everybody together finally, can we maybe finally move in one direction and determine what that is? And that was the sole purpose of that meeting as I saw it. Not to say we're Broken Arrow, not to say we're gonna do it, but to just understand communication and getting people together, consensus. Communication among this board, among the council, the mayor's office, Main Street, the chamber, MUB, the hospital, the schools, the downtown property owners have got to be involved in this. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know where we move forward, but if it ends with that meeting, it means nothing. So I'm still a little perplexed. I'm willing to meet with people just to hear their ideas and try to help people reach a consensus. You all may think that this trust authority has a different function, and if you do, that's fine. But that's what I saw the purpose of that meeting. And like I said, we had people making comments about that meeting, of what it did and what it was accomplishing, who weren't even there. That's destructive and not helpful. So I'd like to continue this project in some kind of organized fashion, continue to meet with people, discuss what issues it may be first comprehensive plan, what can we do together? It may be then a discussion of what do we want? Do we see the need for, go to a city manager? You know, I don't know. But, you know, let's get together and start having those discussions. And age-old problem, you know, save the comments unless you're there in person to have the discussion with us. So that's my thoughts. And I think that's kind of what we got to be deciding, whether or not we want to go as a trust or not.
I thought it was a good meeting. It's helpful to me to hear from others as to what challenges they faced and how they overcame those challenges, and then to be able to see what took 8 years or 10 years or 12 years, but it's really bearing fruit now. And so that was my, I guess, reinforcing takeaway from that meeting was, there are others, I mean, growing up here in Pryor, we used to go over and beat up Broken Arrow. I mean, you know, late sixties.
Is statute of limitations run on that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, especially from a sports.
Nobody was killed.
Yeah, yeah, sports standpoint, and so now it's a community of, I don't know, 100,000 plus. Largest high school in the state. They would maybe send their JV over here to play Pryor, so, yeah, it's remarkable how that community has grown. Obviously don't agree with a lot of the things that they do, over there, some kind of.
And they do have the ability to do things that we don't because of their finances.
Yeah, because of
I
the
mean,
scale.
we understand that.
But where they started was not where they're at
Right,
now.
exactly.
And so, you know, their downtown corridor brought in, you know, $50,000, now it's $500,000. I did research 3 years ago, our downtown does more than theirs did when they started. So there's no excuse for us not trying. They've laid a blueprint for it.
Right.
They struggle, we're gonna face different struggles, but they didn't start here, they started here where we're at. And we can get, if we just double or triple ours, theirs went up, what, 10 times? So,
Maybe for our next EDTA meeting, we extend an invitation to all of the property owners in the corridor reflected on this diagram that Jenny has provided us to come to the meeting. Let's hear from them. What are they interested in? What do they need to grow their businesses, to,
Exactly.
as the fellow from Broken Arrow said, it's about jobs.
Exactly.
The focus shouldn't be on sales tax revenue, it should be on jobs. If you've got jobs, sales tax revenue obviously will come from that. So what do they need to grow their business? What do they need to be more successful than they are now?
Right.
And how can we work together to perhaps assist with that?
I'm glad I brought you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, that's kind of discussion. I mean, that makes sense, you know, and even if we invite other people, I think that starts the discussion. You don't bring them here to say, hey, this is what you gotta do. Hey, you're doing this. It's, what are you doing now? What do you wanna do better? And how can we help each other do that? And I think that's probably an excellent idea and probably a good starting point. And then can move on from there. We can, you know, Main Street can be present for that meeting. Council, a couple of council members could be present to start hearing that too. But I think that's an excellent idea, personally.
Well, I got a different opinion out of the meeting. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. They didn't have a professional city planner. They had a guy with a sociology degree or a psychology degree. He liked people. And Pryor needs to get a little bit more religion, and we need to like people a little bit more. Second thing that they did is they got money behind it. We don't have any money behind it. You're not gonna do anything with a dream unless you have money. And that's what he kept coming out. You know, he started out, they didn't like the church downtown, what'd they do? They go spend X number of dollars and bought 40 acres and took the church off of Main Street and put them out in a beautiful church now. So we, with our dream, we have to have some money. It doesn't do any good to have a dream if you don't have any money.
Oh, and I understand, but I understand we don't have Broken Arrow's money at this time, but because
But they
we,
didn't have it when they started out. either.
exactly, my point. I think
But they had some,
that's-
they got some tips.
Right.
And
Right.
we don't have anybody that wants to stand up and say, okay, we're gonna go out and give some tax incentives to some of these people that won't even paint or clean their front windows.
Exactly. But I think you're saying the same thing, and I would appreciate what Scott said too. You know, we're probably a better starting point than they were. And so I think you probably did hear some of the same things, and I agree. You know, but, you know, people go, oh, you're Broken Arrow, but you know, you can't look at Broken Arrow in 2021. You know, and we don't have their millions, but you're right, when they started, they didn't have those millions. So we've got to determine what we do have and what we can generate, whether through TIF or any other sources, so we do start developing some money to do this, or get a commitment. So you're right too. So how do we start that? Do we start meeting with the business owners first, just to see, I mean, do we start meeting with these groups to come to consensus how to do that? You know, the council's gonna have to be involved big time in that. They're gonna have to come, we're gonna have to hear their ideas, we're gonna have to hear their dreams and their direction too, to see if we can incorporate the same thing.
But Mr. Sordoff, Every one of us get up in the morning and turn the same radio station on. It's WIIFM, what's in it for me? Every one of these people downtown want to know what's in it for them. How can we make it better? How can we make it better?
And that's what we've got to start. And we don't know what we can do till we have those discussions with people. Because it may be what's in it for me, and once when you finally get together and you have to look at each other in the eye, maybe it becomes a little bit, what's in it for us? How do we help change that from what's in it for me to what's in it for us? And we're never gonna change that unless we start communicating with each other and talk to these groups and get with them, like Daryl's suggesting. Otherwise, it's just, and the people have to show up, and I agree, they have to show up and participate. You know, if you're absent from it, it's really easy to throw rocks at it. But we can't let that deter us. It's gotta be, so how do we move from what's in it for me to what's in it for us? Because I think ultimately what Broken Arrow has found out, what was in it for all of them turned out to be what was better for that individual too. Other thoughts? Let's hear from Main Street. Give me your thoughts of what happened there.
No, I completely agree, honestly.
You're fine.
It's casual.
You're probably more
Yeah,
comfortable sitting
we're
down.
all friends, yeah, we're all working together. I totally agree. I think, I liked what you just said about it takes participation too. And we've had many events where we've invited building owners, property owners, and I don't know if they understand the magnitude of what we're trying to do. So I think if that means the EDTA sends out a formal invite and we have that discussion, and that gets them there, they see the importance behind it from an invite other than Jenny from Pryor Main Street saying, hey, let's go make some change, then I'm all for that, and I think that's a great idea. I also, I mean, I agree, I think it takes coming together and agreeing that the perception is that this is really good, and that we can do this, and I think that means, publicly, all of us advocating for it, educating people, you know, if we can all tell 10 friends, those 10 friends are gonna tell 5 friends, and the perception and the culture of this town is gonna change, because we're growing, whether people like it or not, and so are we gonna do it together, or are we gonna do it, alone and not really accomplish anything, and so, I totally agree. I agree with, what Broken Arrow said about, starting somewhere and knowing that it's an investment, it's a risk, and everybody up there knows that and have made risks that some have come up great and some haven't, and this is a risk that I believe that we need to take. It's something that business owners, building owners, want to reap the benefits of, and we just need to put our boots to the ground and do it. And I think it takes planning, yes, but it takes some hands working behind there too, and I think if we can come together and do that, that's the only way change is gonna happen.
And it doesn't change in one meeting.
Doesn't take a long meeting, yeah.
What's gotta be developed first is trust.
Mhm.
And I think you're key too. I mean, and I think Daryl's key too. We don't tell them, oh, we need to come here because we need to straighten you out. I mean, maybe we're the ones that, you know, it's come so we can have a discussion together. We wanna understand where you're at, where you think you're at, where you wanna go. And maybe that's how we get them here. And that should be why we have them come here. Cause, you know, so we can work through this together. So,
Mr. Chairman, Tom Gray, I've been here for several meetings, and I was present at your meeting with Broken Arrow. And I don't know if you heard what the assistant city manager said, and that is, you already have what they were searching for, and that was jobs. You've got 3,000, how many? 3,000 jobs?
4,000 jobs.
4,000 now, and they just announced possibly 2,000 more. What you've got to look at is, how do you prepare your community to bring those people in to spend their money and to live here? A lot of them are leaving every night. I think Don Berger can comment to that. The other thing is, I have my older daughter is a real estate agent out of Edmonton, but she is selling property up on Grand Lake. I don't know if you saw the article. Delaware County
I have a request. We have a new investor that's just bought 20 acres or so many acres here in town that was willing to put his money and come to this. What would you like to see us do to benefit you? This is Mr. Green.
Yeah, Lonnie Green. What's the authority of the trust? What authority do you all have?
That's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, maybe you could tell us. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out, because this is so brand new, and we've talked about many different things, and now we're trying to find what is our focus. And I'm starting to think, perhaps, this is just me, perhaps our focus is to start bringing these groups together, so we can decide as a consensus what is best for Pryor, and finally have all these different entities move kind of in one direction to get that done.
Well, so I would just say from being very new to Pryor, there's not a lot of continuity in the group. So if there's, the group the trust doesn't even know what they're trying to accomplish. That's problematic for me as a new investor coming in. Should the city council have to be here every meeting? Or should this meeting be held after during the city council meeting?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if there's continuity in what the city council wants to do. Okay, I mean, I don't think there's any continuity there. I don't know if there's been any continuity there for years and years. This has nothing about the current administration. I don't know if there's been any continuity there. I don't know if there's been any continuity in direction. I mean, I don't know that we've had the proper people trained and the proper experts. There is a thing about experts, there probably be training in this kind of, to help guide us. So I don't know that you have, I think you have a bunch of groups polling what's in it for me, as opposed to what's in it for us. And so perhaps that's why I see now the function of this trust is to bring that together. That's why I say the city council, not because they have any continuity, but they need to step up too and decide what is the best direction. I mean, this may not be making sense, but until you reach different groups to have a consensus, Pryor, and it's not unique to Pryor, I think it's any small town or any town, now it's any small town, you go to Tulsa, you go to Broken Arrow and run into it. You gotta click here, you gotta click here, you gotta click over there, I mean, I've told some people, I've lived here for 40 years, to some people, I'm still an outsider.
You're
those
a
are-
newcomer.
Yeah, you got it, and so those are the kind of issues that we've got to overcome. And so with direction, so that's why I perhaps see the direction of this right now is to bring people together to try to form that consensus. And you're just an investor and you're buying into it. So you're an important part of that too. We need to hear your voice. We need to hear you're the new voice, and so it's extremely important to hear your perspective too.
Well, and like I said, from what I'm kind of gathering and just trying to get the lay of the land of everything, I'm definitely gonna be here, as long as y'all are doing the meetings, I'll be here. Provided I don't have a conflict with schedule, but I just, from my perspective is, if you all don't have the authority to actually enact anything, you need to get those people here. I mean, you gotta have the people, the decision makers that are implementing whatever strategies that comes up within this trust. They gotta be.
And I agree, but even if we had the authority, if we do something and we don't have all these other groups on board with us, it accomplishes nothing.
I don't think you're ever gonna get everybody on board anyway.
Well, not everybody, but we've got different entities pulling different directions, and I don't, that's why communication, I think this board can help facilitate communication. And we're never gonna make everybody happy, I understand that, I'm not naive, but until you get everybody together to have those conversations, I think that's how you move forward. And again, I think you're new. I think you're an extremely important part of that conversation, because what brought you here, what piqued your interest here, and what are your hopes and dreams for this as just a new property owner? And so your voice is extremely important for that person that's been living here or has owned a downtown property for the last 70 years, and before that, last 50 years before that, it was in their family. They need need to hear that too, because then we can get more to, again, what's in it just for me, as in what's in it for us.
Well, to answer your question, what brought me here, was an opportunity to build, a future property. And then just coming out here and just seeing, with Google here, I didn't realize, I mean, I'm from Wasso, so I've heard, I'm in construction, so I know that we've lost a lot of resources and labor up here to build out Google, but I'd never seen it. I didn't even have a clue what the industrial park has, and then when you drive around and see how huge that facility is, and then you got, Canute coming in. So my thought was just with Google, I'm shocked that there's already not economic development, people coming in here and buying that property. And I get it, there's a lot of it's in floodplains, I understand that, but there's a lot of, I didn't understand that. So it's,
And the biggest economic development that Google has had on us right now is through our school system. Because we have reaped millions of dollars as a result of that, and that has had an impact economically on Pryor because we have greatly increased the number of our staff and our faculty, and the building that we've done here. The county, I'm not sure how it's, county realizes Google money. Unfortunately, the city doesn't get to see a lot of that Google money through ad valorem taxes because Oklahoma, in its wisdom, funds municipalities through sales tax and utility sales. So how does that impact us? How do we work again? So I find it interesting, though, people need to hear what brought you here.
well, it was that, and then, the plan that I have for the property that I bought on the north side is, retail, or business property,
So there are 4 developers in the city limits of Pryor right now who are in Mr. Green's category, where they have invested money in property for the purpose of developing retail. And those efforts that that have been going on with retail development via our consultant, via just the circumstances that we have with growth. And they see it. People all over the country see it, just like you said. And so we have opportunity. The Economic Development Trust Authority has the ability to help facilitate these properties as they develop, whether it be funding roads, whether it be funding utilities, whether it be funding any of those things. But from that developer's perspective, we have the ability to facilitate development of those properties. Then that would be our job.
Well, I think that's what we need to talk to, but he needs to be here too. Well, how can we help you?
Right.
And it has to be more than just funding, because if it's funding, we gotta figure out, as Gene has said, where does our money come from? Because I haven't checked our accounts lately. I don't think this trust authority has just a ton of money sitting in
Flush.
it.
We're flush.
Are we? Okay. So, but those are the kind of issues, that's why the city council has to be involved too. I mean, what kind of seriousness do they have in this? I
So
mean,
promoting tax incremental financing, promoting those things, we have the ability to find out those avenues. And PDG is one of those avenues, because their experience, they have helped develop those things, and that's part of the discussion with them.
I understand, and I'm saying that's why these discussions need to come together, and need to have all the groups working together and the different entities working together. Because as far as him coming in, our trust authority, I haven't heard that. Welcome to Pryor. I'm glad you're here. First time I've heard
It
it.
was fairly new. It was a recent.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, may I say one other thing? Probably one of the best marketers that's in the city is Roy Evans. He's a gentleman that attracts people every Sunday, that brings in 1,000, 1,200 people. So marketing skills, there's a person, if we could incorporate on some of his ideas on how and I'm sure it's because he's a great preacher, but there's other reasons. But then we approached his church and said, we don't want any more churches, even though you bring a ton of people in on Sunday, and they eat at our restaurants. We don't want any more in the city. Is that not a quote, sir?
Well, I don't know who said that. I think there's a concern about the downtown area being used for churches when it should be used for probably retail, but I don't know of anybody who has said, I don't want any more churches in Pryor. And if that's a statement made by somebody, I think it's a statement they don't know, quite frankly, what they're talking about. So.
I think that's a comment that probably had to do with the downtown corridor.
Yeah, and that's the only place I've ever heard that is not using the downtown corridor for churches, but not saying we don't want churches in Pryor.
You know, thank you, Gene, for what you said, and there's a group of people that believe in Pryor. I'm one of them. Um, What I see, this gentleman over here, I deal with what you're talking about, okay? We have a great tool that's right here. We have Grand Lake, Lake Hudson, we have the industrial plant. We have a lot to draw from. But I'm gonna tell you what people in this community are tired of. They're tired of talk. They wanna see something happen, okay? And Jared that is sitting right there, that young man met with me a year and a half ago. He gave me more hope than I've had since our church has been here. Because he looked me in the face and he says, Pastor, are you committed to building on that property? I said, yes, sir. And he says, well, I'm gonna help you. And it has brought, I can't tell you how many, not just this man, but other businesses, other investors, seeing that sewage, seeing work being done, people have called me from Grand Lake. They have called me from Owasso, Tulsa. Pastor, what's going on in Pryor? People want to come to Pryor. We have a wonderful gift here, but what this community is tired of is talk. I'm gonna be real spiritual just a minute. Jesus was talking about how to be the greatest witness. And Jesus said this, let men see your good works, and then they'll glorify the Father. We can sit around and talk all day. We need to find a project and do it, and let people see. Why I'm getting phone calls is because, Jared, you're doing something, and it's catching the eye of people. People are going, something's going on. And I know committees are good, but a committee needs to have a purpose and they need to have authority. They need to have authority to say, we're gonna do something, we're gonna start today, we have a goal to get it done, and people sit up and take notice. But what I deal with constantly is, Pastor, when's restaurants gonna come? Pastor, when something's gonna come that's gonna keep our kids when they graduate high school and they go to college, it's gonna make them wanna come back to Pryor.
Well, what's gonna wanna make them come back to Pryor when they do come back to Pryor to be appreciated too? That's a whole nother story. We're tired of talk too. And I don't think we're just talking about talk here. I think we're trying to get, unless you get these, you get the downtown owners, you get the Main Street, you get all the chamber, you get them on the same board. That's what we're talking about here. Try to get them on the same plan, the same consensus so we can move forward. Because I understand what's going on in Pryor too. And I'm not just talk, because I've been part of the school board for the last 14 years. And if anybody's been leading Pryor, it's been the school system. Because we made a decision, we weren't small school and we weren't going to be that way anymore. And I'll tell you what drives people to Pryor now is our school system. And we have one of the best school systems in the state of Oklahoma. And the buildings we've put here and the programs we've put in here, I guarantee a lot of people want to come to Pryor because they want their schools they want their children in our school system.
I
And
hear
those are
that
the kind of things I'm talking
But you
about.
know why people's not coming? That we got great schools, but we don't have housing. And
Exactly.
we don't have restaurants, and we don't have other things that draw families. And we can say we got great schools, but if I bring my family to Pryor, where am I gonna live?
Okay, but
What's gonna be here to entertain my family?
exactly, and I think you and I are talking the same thing.
We are talking the same
And so
thing.
that's why I think it's important to start out with, let's bring these property owners in. Not from a standpoint, because if, some of them, they're just happy with the way it is. But if it can be revealed to them that if these changes occur, they're gonna increase their position, and they'll increase the ability to, have the restaurants come in, to have the more retail come in. And so that's where I see our
What
function.
someone just said about this app, Oklahoma. I mean, to Oklahoma, yeah. Why don't we have people that look at that and say, what are they looking for? Well, the examples that my daughter gave me was that people in California or the East Coast, especially in California, Oregon, on up, are looking at this app because they want to relocate to a small community, and what they're viewing is that those communities in Oklahoma that have a video on their website that shows the quality of life you have and that you're providing to these people to look at. She said there was people that looked at a video of, I think, Woodward, and liked it so much, without even visiting, they made the decision to move to Woodward, Oklahoma, of all places. What they're doing is marketing.
What have we done to
Which again, and I think we can continue to have talk here today, which would be just talk. But I agree with all of you, again, get the right people in the room together and start moving in those directions. And that's what I'm saying, that's why, again, I think what Daryl has proposed and is to me, a good starting point.
I would like to, I know Gene Dillard said we can't do anything without money. I'm a recovering banker. And I know, I worked for Gene Rainbow. He said with money and time, you can do anything.
That's right,
Isn't that right?
that's right.
And I have an individual whose name is Jody Harris. Mayor, have you talked with her?
No, I'm not.
She's with the Oklahoma Finance Authority as a financial consultant right now. But she was the senior lender at the USDA office in Stillwater. And I worked with her when I was vice president at OSU.
She did the last program out at the industrial park.
Yes. She has a plethora,
You bet.
a lot of knowledge about various sources of financing, grants, low-interest loans that municipalities and organizations can use. And I would be happy to schedule her in here to meet with you guys at your next meeting if you'd like.
Sounds like a great idea.
Sounds like a good idea, Tom.
Okay.
Connect with me, all right?
Okay.
So if we're going to do that, it would appear that would be the next step, and then potentially after that.
Well, I would think that.
Or do you think we have the property owners have them present at the same time?
Yeah, if they can hear that.
And how do we
A lot of
get them
money.
invited? Can Main Street, can you also, we'll do it ourselves, but can you also assist?
Yeah,
I And-
all the contacts that I have, I can send to you guys as far as emails and phone numbers, and then.
Send those to Darla.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so maybe we can issue a city invitation, and you
Sure.
also, and then ask this other, and maybe she can lead off, and then we can start a discussion with the property owners from there,
Yes.
okay? Does that sound like a,
Can I make a suggestion in that? Don't just send an email, don't just send a letter, but each one of you that's in this, do a personal invitation.
Yep.
Go up to a business owner and say, we would love to have your presence, come with me. Come and say, afterwards, I'll buy your lunch.
But Pastor, you've been religious again, because the scripture says, by your words you're justified, and by your words you're condemned. So you're wanting us to use our mouth. No, we want to hide behind the computer and send an email.
but that really is, and I understand that concept, because my employees, I've always told them to, don't deal just with people with emails. I want the follow-up where you're personally talking to them too,
You
so we
bet.
have that communication.
You bet.
So if we could help facilitate some of that connection, and you could help facilitate that, and you could help and get with the mayor or Darla and make arrangements, when was our next,
I believe it's the 9th of August.
the 9th of August? Does that sound something that,
Or is it maybe the 10th? Let me look.
No, it's the
How do you-
12th
No,
of
it's the
June.
9th. The second Monday.
it's the 12th of June. Yeah,
I'm looking at a calendar this time, I promise.
that was Daryl's comment, not mine.
Cater luncheon every month, have catering enough for,
So what's,
You know what, we did that before COVID. We had that going on before COVID,
so what is the date in August? Is
the
it
9th.
the 9th? So can we find out fairly quickly if the 9th will, and let the mayor know or let us know if the 9th will work? Tom, can you check and see with her?
I'm sending her an email right now.
Well, that's pretty quick.
Put it on her schedule.
Very good,
I'll let you know.
very good. Okay. And then you'll get the information and we'll make some contact with business owners. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Takes us to economic development updates, which I think we've just done a lot of, but
Mr. Chairman, I continue to have close contact with Mid-American Industrial Park regarding housing development potentials. They've asked me for that information, and I provide that for them. Also, Cherokee Nation had a ribbon cutting for their new Career Services Center this past week. I attended that, and there's a lot of energy there with the career services and jobs and the jobs placement. Our emergency center library expansion is moving forward, it's plowing forward, and we are on schedule. I mentioned before, there are 4 new developers in town who are producing retail recruitment and meetings. I'm having meetings and contacts with them. They're very active. And regarding the video on the website, that's something that I've been encouraged with recently by Ms. Durr is one of them, and others. So I guess stay tuned on that. We'll get something put on a website that's a little more appropriate for marketing. We have 4 downtown corridor property owners that sit on this trust authority, and I'd like to encourage not only property owners other than the 4, but the 4 people are looking to you all for leadership and looking to you for guidance. I think it's a real blessing to be able to have 4 downtown corridor property owners on this trust authority, and I think that's a blessing, and I think that's an item that's when we talk about tax incremental financing, or we talk about any kind of financing, whatever it might be, we need to hear from you guys as well.
okay.
Y'all have any questions for me?
No, just a couple other suggestions too. If we could consider possibly getting maybe not different couple of council members at our next meeting too.
Sure.
And also if we can issue an invitation to the chamber to join us again,
Sure.
okay? Anybody have any questions of the mayor?
I want to thank Mr. Green, Mr. Gray, and Brother Roy for attending today. Appreciate your comments.
I think that takes us to number 7.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. I think it's unanimous.
Yeah.